I was lost one time in the Newark airport for 4 hours until I found my college boyfriend. I was going to visit him in upstate New York. And this was before I owned a cell phone, and I was afraid and exhausted and hopeless and hungry by the time I found him. And that kind of lost doesn't really happen to us much anymore. We are so much more certain of things now, or at least those kinds of things. We don't get lost in the woods really either. We go on prescribed hikes that have a beginning and a middle and an end. And our children tend to go to parks and have play dates instead of getting lost in the forest or the fields or the wild land. And nobody really sends their kids off to those stray ditches in the backs of houses like they used to when I was growing up. I have this memory of when I was a little girl. I think I was about 5 or 6, and it's one of my earliest concrete memories. Partly, I think I remember it because it has this sliver of shame attached to it. This house that we lived in was brick, a kind of yellowish gold, and it was a tiny house on a corner lot. And the lot, I remember, was kind of pie-shaped or pizza-shaped, and it expanded into this really big backyard, and that yard was actually bigger than the house itself. Well, I was a really quiet kid, pretty deep and serious even when I was very little, and I was introverted right out of the gate. Very, very early one summer morning, I woke up and decided to go for a walk by myself. It was barely sunrise, and I had on a long blue nightgown, and everyone in my house was asleep. I didn't go very far, and I remember being barefoot and a little bit cold. But the thing that I remember the most is that the whole world seemed like it was so still and so quiet. And it was possibly the most alone I had ever been, being only 5 or 6. And I thought that I was completely unsupervised, and I liked it. Not because I wanted to do something naughty or irreverent even, but because even that young, I craved being in a space that was unwitnessed and outside in fresh air and just with my thoughts where the world was so, so still. Well, on my walk, I had to pee. And I was about a block or two from home, and I knew that I probably wouldn't make it. I still remember this so clearly. I remember where I was standing on the sidewalk. And because I was so sure that no one in the world was up or awake, I felt safe, and I squatted down and I peed. And after that, I went home and I crawled back into bed. And in a way, I had an entirely new sense of wonder and of power and of peace. And I remember that feeling that morning after all of these years. Something else happened later in that day that kind of drained the sweetness out of it. A neighbor lady, and I don't remember her name, but I remember which house she lived in on the street. She called my mom, and she told her that she'd seen me out of the window walking really early in the morning and had seen me go to the bathroom and just wanted to let them know in case they didn't know. Well, of course, I felt instant shame when my mom confronted me about it. I was really shy, and I never wanted to do anything that would worry people or anything that would get me into trouble. And ultimately, the lady's reporting robbed me of the beauty and the wildness of that morning. But that little outing, despite what the neighbor did, that little outing remained significant for me because it whet my appetite for being lost in a way, and for having pockets of time where I was unwitnessed by other people, even that young. When we get lost, we feel the bigness of the world, the bigness of other stories other than our story. And then, of course, usually when we get lost, we get to curl into the natural world in a significant way, and in a way that produces awe and majesty.